So my first question is to Ben. Ben, how can people get involved with NSA? How can they help? Number one, they can obviously send their students there, but what are some of the big vision goals, and how can people be a partner of that thing, that amazing thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you go into our webpage, go into our blog, you can follow us on social media. We're trying to put a lot of stuff out. Um, our big this moment for us right now, we've been really blessed through the last 4 years. We doubled our undergraduate enrollment in the last 4 years, which for most colleges, the last 4 years was a time of great pruning, but we've been moving forward. So right now, we're really digging into expanding and building the facility. So we're a major capital campaign and things like that. If you're interested in coming along to support or help there, there's a lot of need. My goal is to basically over the next 10 years to establish NSA as a leading premier Christian liberal arts college. And I think that we've seen in the past, over the past millennia, you see critical institutions come online at critical moments. I did my doctorate at Oxford, and it was really interesting to be at Oxford and to see how this one institution had a disproportionate effect on the entirety of the West. And then it moved, and we had early American, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. These made a profound impact on our early nation, but that glory has departed and is slowly moving, and we need the next institutions and we need to be forward thinking enough to identify those and to launch them. So that's my big thing right now is probably raising capital for NSA my goal is to get us to about 750 somewhere in the next 15 years, but to be that place where it's kind of a premier, we're identifying future leaders and equipping them, sending them out to start businesses, to run political offices, and that sort of thing. I think I've got brochures. If you grab me afterwards, if you have an interest in what I'm talking about, let me know and I can hand some stuff off to you.
Okay, questions? Here's one.
First of all, thank you very much. This was a really great conversation. One of the questions you guys were focusing on tonight was what's happened with education. And you touched on, for example, the loss of the transcendent and some of the mechanistic changes due to the federal government and how things were changed fiscally. One thing you kind of touched on tangentially that I wanted to see you guys touch on a little bit more was kind of the really specific actions taken by the Marxists, particularly the Frankfurt School, like Herbert Marcuse and what's his name? Pablo Fiera, the Marxists, and how they particularly injected a lot of these neo-Marxist ideas consciously into academia and particularly targeted the education departments. So when you think about the trickle-down effects of all these things, that's another component really that I'd like to hear you guys expatiate a little bit more on how that's really affected the education.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Frankfurt School came over during World War II to get away from Hitler, and then they brought their virus over here, and it started in Colombia, interestingly enough, right? And so that's where we saw all the protests breaking out, primarily of late, where the pro-Palestinian progressives started clashing with the more pro-Israeli liberals, and sort of the civil war. So the way I understand it is Marcuse taught a concept called repressive tolerance, right? Let that hit you. Repressive tolerance. So again, it's the binary of the oppressed versus the oppressor. Most of them had made their peace with wealth. They weren't interested in Soviet communism. They had made their peace with wealth. They recognized that the true battle was in cultural institutions. And the key for Marcuse was sort of a third world revolution, and so they realized that the way to transform our nation was to teach students to hate it, basically. And that actually goes back to a 19th century trope that you see among the aristocracy, where they tended to poo-poo Western civilization as sterile and industrial, and then they looked at the allure of indigenous cultures, that they're living in peace with the buffalo and all that. And so they created this noble savage mythology, and then that seems to have gotten very institutionalized through these cultural Marxists, through the notion of resentment, that these people, when they come to the West, are treated as less than human. They were treated less than human in the colonization around the world, and they exploited that. And now you're a truly educated person if you hate the West. If you love the West, you're some knuckle dragging red state, conservative. But if you hate the West, then you get it. And Ben talked about like the GI Bill. They're coming in during World War II. They're teaching these ideas in the university system, and then we end up sending more people than ever to the colleges, and it just became like this cardiovascular system of hate that just spread throughout the country, and to now where you have wokeness, where if you don't hate, we're going to cancel you. Silence is compliance, right? So it's pretty dangerous stuff, no question. I just think the good news is people are sort of onto it, and they recognize this is civilizational suicide. We can't have a functional country by opening up the borders and shipping jobs overseas to more worthy people who are going to knock down prices and then maximize margins for the CEOs, and then recast our customs, cultures, and traditions as bigoted and racist and all kinds of phobic. So yeah, they were very, very destructive. And then once it gets into the education department, then it seeps into K to 12, and then you get CRT in the classrooms and the like. So yeah, it's been a very pernicious, ugly movement. And fortunately, it seems like it's ugly. Hate hates, so it ends up destroying itself. Rot always ends up rotting, and so it doesn't have a future. It looks like it's only lasted not even 100 years, and it's beginning to dissipate. But in the meantime, it's just caused tremendous frenzy. There's a Polish scholar by the name of Andrzej Lobachevsky, and a Brazilian scholar, Olavo de Carvalho. And they both they studied Marxists their entire adult lives, and they both came to the conclusion, I was actually hearing Jordan Peterson talk about this on Fox News, that the left is basically, in terms of its core, is made up of psychopaths. They are literal psychopaths. And when psychopaths get a large following, they turn that following hysterical, and so now you have a new TDS, right? Tesla derangement syndrome and the like. I mean, they think what they're doing is good, and if you don't do it, there's something wrong with you, because again, silence is compliance. So but it goes back to this notion. Education will always be religious. You're always going to have this higher value system that arranges your sense of life, that provides some kind of hierarchy and structure of life. And this one was that the ultimate the ultimate value was learning just how unvaluable your Western civilization is. It's very, very despicable. Right? So and then they all gets wrapped up into this repressive tolerance. Anything that hates Western civilization will be tolerated, and then anything that defends Western civilization will be repressed.